During the 19th century, the labels folk society and urban society were used to distinguish the difference between rural and urban lifestyles. Folk being associated with people whose members share similar cultural traits, live predominantly in rural areas, and whose livelihood is minimally connected to the global market. However, the term folk is more problematic in today's ongoing globalization because it suggests that these people in developed countries are less advanced, which is not the case. Today, geographers have shifted from that dual classification and instead prefer to speak of local culture. Local culture is the practices, attitudes, and preferences held in common by the people of a particular place. In this lecture, we will examine key concepts in culture through local knowledge. These are important to geographers to understand how humans have connected with others from distant places and to understand how different cultural activities and knowledge operate throughout the world. In local culture, we have local knowledge. Local knowledge refers to the collective knowledge from everyday activities of the people of the community. We know the rules, we know how to get by, and everyone knows the protocol of a specific place. We know how to get along with one another, and we know what we need to do to sustain our community and keep it going. The images at the bottom are examples of local knowledge. The image on the left are of small women farmers of the Bolivian highlands. Their living conditions are becoming harder due to the growing shortage of water. Local knowledge combined with improved practices are the first step in adapting to these changes and avoiding food shortages. The middle image is a man in Bangladesh who is holding up diseased jackfruit. All peoples have names for and knowledge of plants, animals, and other things in the real world. A study in Bangladesh, Uganda, and Bolivia revealed that smallholder farmers label plant health problems with meaningful names. And the image on the right is a pastoralist in Kenya, where companies are working with these farmers to understand their local knowledge and how climate change affects their livelihoods. There are three characteristics that help clarify local knowledge. 1. Local knowledge is usually spoken, not written. 2. Local knowledge is dynamic and continuously evolving. It builds upon itself. And 3. Local knowledge is not a single entity. There are many groups within a community producing many local knowledges. Unfortunately, local knowledge was not always looked upon in a favorable light. Europeans during the colonialism period perceived the local knowledge of non-Europeans as irrational and childlike and therefore inferior. This idea was called the rationality doctrine. The Europeans thought of themselves as the rational thinkers. However, today researchers share the view that the awareness of local knowledge in its local context is essential for solving individual and community problems in the near future and long term. The awareness of local knowledge also provides insights on the social capital of that community. Social capital is the social ties, networks, institutions, and trust that members of a group use to achieve mutual benefits. The chart in the slide shows that the many aspects that go into social capital from people in the community. One example of local knowledge that the author uses is in the approach to medicine. A comparison is drawn between traditional and allopathic medicine. Traditional medicine, which is in broad terms, is the long-term health-related knowledge of a community to maintain or restore well-being. Traditional medicine has been around for a long time, and most traditional approaches share two attributes. 1, they tend to be holistic, meaning comprising all aspects of health, physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And 2, they tend to be personal. It takes an individual approach to treatment. Acupuncture, an ancient form of traditional Chinese medicine, is an example of a traditional approach, which promotes healing through inserting needles in the body at specific points. Traditional medicine is geographically widespread. Although not a lot of statistics are kept, it is part of the national healthcare systems of China, North Korea, South Korea, and Vietnam. Modern or Western medicine is labeled allopathic. This type of approach uses clinical trials to evaluate whether the cure will work or not. Everyone therefore gets the same treatment. More countries like the US, Canada, Australia, and some countries in Europe are beginning to adopt traditional medicines within their healthcare systems and are calling it complementary and alternative medicine, or CAM for short. The graph shows the percentage of population in selected developed countries that use CAM at least once. Even in countries where allopathic practices prevail, people indicate a willingness to try CAM. The photo on the bottom shows some different kinds of herbal medicines they may use in CAM. Herbal medicines are now estimated to have a global market value of $60 million. People can also have specific knowledge, called specialized knowledge, as part of local knowledge and can include information about the environment. Specialized knowledge may not be shared with another group in the community, and it can depend upon a person's gender, age, status, wealth, and life experience. The book offers a few examples of this specialized knowledge. For instance, older men in South African villages had the more extensive knowledge of plant resources for medicines than women. Second, in the Talindig communities of the Philippines, the women had more knowledge about lowland herbs, where men had knowledge of the forest herbs. And third, in towns in the Amazon, women typically had the knowledge of medicinal plants. They grew them in their gardens and yards and shared that knowledge with other women. Water resources and the collection of water are another example of specialized knowledge. Different areas of the world have different ways of acquiring this natural resource. For example, the San people of the Kalahari Desert in Botswana use sip wells. They use straws to collect water underneath the sand and store it in ostrich eggs. And in the map, you will see all the countries as highlighted in blue either have used or are using quanats for water management. Most of the quanats in use today are in the Middle East. Quanats are a system of shafts and tunnels to tap into underground water resources as shown in the other photos and diagrams. In these communities, it is usually women who collect the water. They may have more knowledge on a day-to-day level. Local knowledge also includes how humans use space through vernacular architecture. Vernacular architecture is the common structures associated with a particular place, time, and community, like houses, buildings, churches, etc. For example, in China, building traditions usually reflect an awareness of cosmic forces called mystic ecology, which is the interrelationship between an awareness of a cosmic force and human use of the environment. An example of this is in feng shui, which is the art and science of situating settlements or designing cultural landscapes and buildings to be in harmony with nature. The photo at the top is a Mongolian nomad in front of her home. These homes are known as gur or yurts, with walls consisting of a circular lattice frame and a roof supported by slender poles. The entire structure is covered with felt and can be collapsed for transport to a new location. The photo at the bottom right is a rest stop in Germany. This building was designed according to feng shui. The site's mountain backdrop and nearby creek generate positive qi. The wavy roof colors and materials evoke the 5 elements of feng shui: wood, earth, metal, fire, water, and harmonize with the environment. The photo on the left is a church in Colombia that is built from giant bamboo that grows in Colombia and Ecuador. This bamboo has been used for housing by the indigenous population for centuries and is favored as earthquake-resistant building material. Please pause the video and answer the following. How can the understanding of local knowledge help us accept the diversity in the world? Reference examples from the lecture in your answer. In your own words, using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific with your answer.